Where were we? Oh, questions, yes. Somebody else have a question? Somebody else must have a question. Oh, this lady here.
I was just wondering about the breathing. Do you have a specific method if you breathe the same if you're coming in on a high note by itself, like for the rest of the time? Like, do you do any kind of hesitation or do you have a control?
Well, breathing to me is something that is not as important as what you do with the breath. You know, you can see a lot of people take a breath and then not do anything with it. I don't believe in over-breathing. Whether I'm playing high or low, I think make a good preparation. And incidentally, I've noticed lately that when I'm setting my mouth to center, when I take that breath, I don't put my tongue up in a playing position. I just leave everything as loose as I can till the very last minute, and then I set this in. And that's something that Jimmy Stamp says is the number one important thing of his teaching. That is, any pressure that is needed in the embouchure is applied after the breath. I think whether you're playing high and loud or soft in the middle register, you need to take a good breath. And much bigger than most people think. I think it's so... Well, you want to know how big a breath to take? Stand behind Bud Hersons sometime when he's playing in the orchestra. Not warming up or theorizing about playing, but when he's playing and a guy's giving him a downbeat and Bud is like this. You can hear it. Breath like that and play softly too, but the important thing is to energize it from here. If you take a big breath, by now I build up enough strength that I can hardly get away from it, but the important thing is after you take that breath, to make it go to work, the energy has to come from here. You can't have a vacancy anywhere in between here. It has to be like a solid rod of energy right up through and into the horn. Whatever you can do to think about singing into the instrument will give you better results. Don't take that child out. You'll never learn anything about trumpet out in the hall. Okay, anybody else have a question right here?
Both vibrato and...
Vibrato? I use a hand vibrato, which at times I wish I could. I've never learned to use a lip or jaw or this. Never have, because I was always afraid of it. Because I've heard too many guys who had a lovely lip vibrato, and after about 5 or 10 years of playing, it just gets faster and faster and faster. This is harder to do. But if you can do it properly, it's less troublesome because you're not disturbing your embouchure in any way. But my guess is that in the attempt to be very musical, you will adapt little things here and there. Like if the vibrato's not coming along right this way, and you're hearing it in your head how you want it to be, and if you have to help it along here or something, I'm not going to argue with that at all. Yeah?
Some people advise students to use the smallest mouthpiece that they can get away with. Other people say exactly the opposite. Use the biggest mouthpiece you get away with. What's your point of view on that?
Well, it depends on what you're playing, first of all. I don't think it's ever a good idea to take a student, a little kid beginning, and hand him a 1C. I mean, that doesn't make much sense. But then I'm not a teacher, so I don't know. I say just a good, solid, middle-of-the-road mouthpiece, something that's not too big, or something that's not too small, and not too big a hole in it or any of that kind of stuff. As you play more and more, become stronger, You may find, well, hey, I need to get a little more room in that mouthpiece, or I've got to have a bigger hole to get the job done. But even in symphony orchestras, they use a lot of different mouthpieces, depending on what they're playing. I think it's good to not fool around too much, but that's far in the past for me. I got 500 mouthpieces at least sitting in my bathroom. And I know where every one of them is, too. And I don't approve. I mean, if I were going to teach, I would take a kid and try to start him off on something like, like the old, what they say, a 7C or something like that. Incidentally, when Bud Hurst auditioned for the Chicago Symphony, I forgot the piece he played that really nailed it for him, but he played on a Bach 7B with a 27 hole. And to this day, Bud plays most of the time on a 7C rim. But he had a severe injury to his lip, and the only way he could play, he had to go to something like a 1B or something, and to get on the outside of the scar tissue. So pretty soon everybody was playing on 1B to get out on the side of the scar tissue, which most of them didn't have. But there is no question, to get a certain sound that you want to get in an orchestra, you have to use a bigger mouthpiece. There's no two ways about it. And that there are exceptions to every rule. Now, Bud, just as soon as I said that, you go see Bud play the next time, he'll turn out he's playing on a 1B with a 17 hole. But I know that basically, because my mouthpiece is copied off of his, I played with the orchestra, and I kind of like the feel of it. So I said, well, I'll have a guy make me one of those. That's what I've been playing on. So, I don't know. The things that I play, I can't use a really big mouthpiece. And I'm finding that if you go about it, you can get a pretty good size sound out of a medium-sized mouthpiece. But I know for a fact that if I were going to sit in the Edmonton Symphony or whatever orchestra, if I were to play in one of those, I'd be shopping for a bigger mouthpiece. Somebody else? This lady back there? Speak loudly.
Do you feel that you've benefited from...
Not that loudly. Okay.
Do you feel that you've benefited from playing in many mediums of music as opposed to just one, or do you feel that you lack in some areas?
Well, I'm a structured schizophrenic. So I never know what hat I'm wearing. I like all different kinds of music. I'm not the kind of a guy that could have been playing in a symphony or just playing in a jazz band. That wouldn't satisfy me. And I think that, yes, one can oftentimes help the other. Most of the kids that are coming out of conservatories today looking for jobs have been trained in such a way that they play jazz to some extent and they play classical. And I think that's fine. But I can tell you this, if you want to really be absolute tops in a certain field, you're not going to be able to wear too many hats. If you're going to be Bud Hurst or Al Lowry or Tom Stevens playing in a major symphony orchestra in that first chair, there's very little likelihood that it's going to be beneficial to you to be out playing hot licks in a nightclub on a 10.5C mouthpiece. Somebody else, right?
As a young player, is it possible to burn yourself out and play too much, or should you play every chance you get?
It's highly unlikely. You can burn yourself out doing anything by not having a relaxed mental attitude and getting enjoyment out of it. And the trumpet is a physical instrument, very physical. So there's always a chance that you can bang your chops around and, injury add on top of injury, and pretty soon, it's not fun to play. You get a lousy sound. Yeah, I think every now and then taking a day or 2 days off is good. My wife has to battle with me. I mean, when I get home tomorrow, she's going to want to talk, because women always want to talk. And I know that I'm going to want to go up and say, I don't want to talk, I want to go warm up. And she's going to say, let alone for a day. Just give yourself a day off and you see you'll feel better. And I say, yeah, well, that's easy for you to say. But you know she's right. Especially if I've had a tough weekend. Taking that day off is more of a help sometimes than not.
Would you discuss the amount of time you spend per day on a normal week in warm-up, practice, and then rehearsal?
Every day that I practice, I will spend my warm-up, which I've demonstrated, will take from an hour, about minimum, to an hour and 15 minutes or an hour and 30 minutes. Then I'm not really keeping track, but let's say what I'm going to play with the symphony orchestra this weekend or the next time I'm going out, I'm just going to be practicing on that. Sometimes I haven't been doing it enough lately, but I'm going to start now. I'm going to start practicing very, very softly with no expression and no dynamics, like just triple pianissimo at all times to the point where the notes almost don't catch or don't catch. Sometimes an hour spent practicing your repertoire that way, it doesn't sound very good, but boy, the next day it sure sounds a lot better. Then after I've done that, then I'll go to work. And usually at work, while I have the band play some, and our rehearsals are the weirdest things you've ever seen. I'll tell the guys, I say, I don't want to hear you guys play, I just want to hear it good. I don't want any excuses either. And they know I'm kidding. But I got a little back room right off the bandstand where I do the practice. And you'll see there'll be maybe 3 or 4 trumpets, a 1 trombone, and a tenor sax sitting there. Just those guys practicing. They play all the charts we're going to play that day with that instrumentation. The weirdest combinations. I mean, they just do it themselves. And I don't know what my point is here, but anyway, during that time, I'm off in this little back room. I may run through one of those solos again. And I used to practice in the evening too, but my wife made me stop. She wants to talk. Okay. Somebody else have something to add on all of this nonsense here? I know somebody does. Yeah, you know when that always happens? When I go and I put my horn away, then's when all the questions, I didn't want to say anything out there, but yes.
What are you going to get Johnny Carson to like to play horn on the show?
Well, after 28 and a half or 29 years, I don't think it's going to happen. I don't care. I really don't care. You know, I used to worry about having a band do more, but hey, I'm not here playing this weekend. That's, I take the Tonight Show band out. You should hear that. We do concerts occasionally, and that is quite impressive. I stand up in front of those guys sometimes. I got turned Pete Chrisley and Ernie Watts loose on something about that man, they run those changes up one side and down the other for 15 minutes, and it's unbelievable. So I hear the band all the time. I don't know. It doesn't do any good to write in either. Because I used to write a lot of letters. I think he recognized my handwriting, though. I think that's what ruined it. Anybody else have a question? I know you do. There's somebody else. Yes, a man back there.
How do you approach your high note? How do you practice your high note?
Well, pretty much the way I demonstrated. After I'm well into my warm-up, I do scales going up, expanding scales. I don't play loudly. I don't force those high notes. There's an interesting thing in that Jimmy Stamp system where he said that a guy who's playing, he shows, there's photographs of him playing, well, I don't think I can do it now because my lip is kind of lost its tone here, but going through the C's all the way up with the same setting, and that's more what I'm interested in. Try as close as possible to have the same setting for everything. And after I've done my expanding scales that I spoke of, the last being this. Then I'll do these. C. But I don't, I have the capability of playing pretty high notes, but I'm not too into it, especially the school of, Sweat and Strain, where those high notes sound. I never forget, I turned on the radio one day in the car, and I happened to have it on a certain station. I turned it on, and somebody was playing like way above double high C, and I went, what the hell is that? And it turned out to be a trumpet. And I don't want it to be that way. I mean, I want to have some kind of quality. And there is a school of the high notes. Maynard does it very effectively. And he's the best, I think. And there's other guys that play high notes, but they're done in a studio in a certain way with extreme amount of air behind it or something. I don't know. I just find it unmusical. But I know the other guys can play really high notes and get some kind of music out of it. I do think being able to play high notes is not a bad thing, because it usually means that you got well set embouchure for the middle register where all the money is made. Don't forget that. There's been more money made between low C and middle C than there ever was above high C. Not that money is the measure, but it doesn't hurt. Money is the most wonderful tranquilizer in the world.
Do you find using piccolo trumpet helps to keep you active?
I don't think using a piccolo trumpet is helpful for anything but a set of bad nerves. And I only say that because I'm just not a piccolo trumpet player. I don't know what it could do for you. I know that my teacher, Benny Baker, was about the most amazing sounding trumpet player I ever heard. I had the opportunity of getting an air check of him playing the opening of Pictures at an Exhibition, and I also had a recording taken off the air of him playing the Bach-Brandenburg Concerto, and it ruined him. It finished him. Because in those days, they didn't have good piccolo trumpets. He went to a pot shop on 8th Avenue and picked up some little thing, and it ruined him. It put him out of the business. I played piccolo on an album I did, but under a severe protest. The guy said, no, you have to do it. Eric Coates was my friend, and I do what Eric says. And he says, you got to play this. I even forgot the name of the thing. Whatever that is, album. And not for my humming, however. And so I said, I don't even own a piccolo trumpet. So I went out, and Schilke made me one. He makes it for everybody. But I told him what I wanted, so he sent me one. I tried a couple others I didn't like. And he sent me a mouthpiece, said to use this mouthpiece. So I put it up there. And Tom Stevens, whose first trumpet with the L.A. Phil, came over, and he tuned it in A. He said, you can't play it because you can't make the trills. I said, oh. So he showed me the fingerings and everything, and I said, well, I don't know how this thing ought to go. So I bought Maurice Andre's recording of it. And I said, well, okay, I guess that's how it's supposed to sound. So I practiced it to sound like that, and we recorded it. And then somebody told me that Maurice played it on a D trumpet. And I'm trying to get the same sound, so I mean, I played that sucker loud, I guess. But I mean, I'm not, yeah, I think they sound wonderful. I heard, when I was eating yesterday in the hotel, they had some playing classical music, and boy, some piccolo trumpet player, it was remarkable. But that's a breed all itself. Ask Alan and his friend here, the guys from the symphony. They can tell you all about that stuff. I don't know. But I know that most guys playing in symphonies don't much like to have to wind up playing the sidewinder, you know, the Austrian business, and they don't much like having to play a piccolo trumpet. I've never met the only people I've ever met who like to play piccolo trumpet are very eccentric people. That's a bit, you know, that's a little bit glib, but it's true. There are truisms, you know, in an orchestra. Like, do you ever notice all trombone players? I hate this business.
Figured they'd win. Go, Faithful! Here we go.
Notice all trombone players? I hate this business of everybody looks alike or ethnic similarities, any of that kind of stuff. However, in a symphony orchestra, they're really true. Did you ever see a violin player with anybody other than another violin player? No. Because nobody else wants to be around them. And the trombone players are always a little bit portly and very dependable people. Very dependable. If you needed your boat sanded, they could know to come over and help you do it, tell you exactly how to do it. Or if your plumbing was bad, they could fix your plumbing. And tuba players definitely are living in a world of their own, which they just want somebody to know, I can play a melody. And this syndrome affects all of them. They have a society. Yeah, the tuba society. And French horn players are all extremely strange people. Because they got that little tiny mouthpiece. I mean, if you had to start off the day every day warming up, putting that little sucker on your lip, that would make anybody weird. And you know, I mean, they always have these horrible exposed things to play. I mean, they're always sitting around with, and they all wanted to be trumpet players. And bassoon players are all basically communists. They all want to run the orchestra. They all want to decide what's going to be in the next contract. And it's usually the second bassoon player who is the most demonstrative about these things. You think I'm kidding? All of this is true. Do we have another question? Oh, ladies, I guess, boy, I really must have covered everything. And somebody said we were going to do a clinic. I said, well, it'll last about 15 minutes or less, because that's the first clinic I ever did. I was telling these guys yesterday, we were having a lunch. I did it for Ravelli down at the University of Michigan. So to get ready, I better write down what I know about playing the trumpet. And I had a yellow line pad, and I got about halfway down the page. I said, damn it, that's all there is. I don't know that much. And I went out to do the clinic. It was supposed to last an hour and a half, and in 15 minutes, I'd done it all, including playing. So Ravelli had to come up and do the rest of it, because it had to last an hour and a half. Never understood that. Never understood why. This gentleman did have a question.
Who's your favorite trumpet player?
I don't have any favorite trumpet players. You know how I feel about the trumpet player? Usually people say, who do you think is the best trumpet player in the world? There is no such thing. There's some guy sitting off in a little practice studio 100 miles down the road who's having a great day, who that day might be the best. Another day, nobody is the best every day. I mean, this instrument is two-dimensional. I remember getting into this with my teacher, Benny Baker. He said, if you have 2 really good days in a year, you've had a good year. And he meant it. He wasn't kidding. I mean, a trumpet is it's an elusive kind of an instrument. It doesn't always turn out the same. And I like different players for different things. And who knows who they are and when they are. There are certain players who are very consistent and great stylists. I don't always like the ones that everybody else likes. I like Miles Davis a lot. And a lot of people say, yeah, but he doesn't get a good trumpet sound. I said, who cares? Lewis and Clark weren't in a great wagon either when they went across the United States. But at least they got there. They were doing something. They were discoverers. Look and you take guys like Miles Davis and Dizzy Gillespie. They got terrible embouchures, and sometimes they don't get a very good sound. But somehow they say something. These are the pioneers, and I think they're entitled to whatever they do. They can do anything they want. That's how I feel about it. And Louis Armstrong, so many people used to criticize him for different things. How can you do that? How can you say that? I get so upset with people, musicians, taking shots at other musicians. You know, we're all troubadours. We're not doctors and lawyers, and we're the clowns. And we need to stick together and look out for one another instead of saying, well, he's a symphony player. Well, he's a jazz player. Who cares? I mean, we're all in this thing together. That's why I like country and western. I like rock and roll. I like it all. And I think we're a fraternity of performers, players. And it's a wonderful, strange society. And we're not like the rest of them. That's just all there is to it. And we need to be together. We need to have some kind of brotherhood and respect for one another. That's how I feel about it. I've talked way too much. And all I could say is go home and practice. Because I'm going to go warm up now.